In the decades that preceded the internet, if you wanted to learn about flying and flying wisdom, you either had to experience it yourself or read. You had to read voraciously. I have a library in my house of about 1,400 books on the subject of aviation. And one of my favorite things to read was always a section in Flying Magazine called I Learned About Flying from That. Early on in learning how to fly and beginning to flight instruct, I would read it every single month and just cling to the next word and try to glean what I could until I got to the point in my flying career where I would start to say things like, well, yeah, if you would have been my student, I would have helped you through that and maybe you wouldn't have had that happen. So fast forward a couple decades, I bet I haven't picked up a flying magazine in at least 15 years. That's not to say that I don't still try to learn about flying, but the presentation of new, interesting topics is different now. And with the internet and videos and interaction of social media, there's just a lot more effective ways to say, oh, wow, look at that. So here, let me explain what happened. Here I am approaching my home field, and it was a long time since I had flown. I had suffered a bout with COVID, still not completely over all of the symptoms. I hadn't flown in about 5 weeks at this point. And as I approach the field here, I'm aware of the fact that there's a significant crosswind from the right to the left as you're looking at the western sunset here. The winds are out of the north. So I'm going to make a left turn to the downwind here shortly, and when I do, I'm going to set up for a right-hand pattern to land here so that I phase in with the airport traffic. It was a pretty busy evening. There was 5 or 6 airplanes in and out of the pattern. So I had watched one final departure, and when he cleared the airspace, I decided to commit to my approach and landing here. You can't see it here, but I'm sliding to the south. Now that I've turned back to the east, I'm sliding to the south, so I'm having to hold just a little bit of pressure to the left. And if you look down at this corner of the lake here, just keep that geography in mind because it creates a funnel for that wind to blow over that house and through a gap in the trees. So right about here, I'm pretty much thinking conditions are fairly benign, no big deal. I'll just continue on my approach here, and we'll make a standard crosswind approach to the flare and touch down and lay the wing down. Typically, the wind is going to blow the wing to the same direction that the wind is blowing. So I'm kind of prepared for that mentally. And I figure that the lee of the hangars as I approach here, that'll be on the right-hand side, will help dampen that effect. And as soon as I get the wing down below the top of the hangars, which is going to happen almost in my flare, it'll go down as a non-event, pretty standard landing. But what actually happens completely caught me off guard. And in fact, I could write a I learned about flying segment from that. So here as I turn on the final, I'm just a little bit higher than I want to be, especially given the chance of there being a significant crosswind at the runway. If I float too far down there, the trees are so high, it's going to cause me to have some burble, and I'm definitely going to be in the lee of those trees. I come over here, I slide off the runway approach onto the grass between the taxiway and the runway, and everything looks really, really good. I missed the VASI light just as planned. There's my preferred touchdown spot. Okay, I'm committed. I flare, and right here, I clear those hangars, and the wind gust just rips me over to the left. What you can't see in this video is as I was up on 2 wheels, envisioning my face grinding along on the grass, I took my feet off the steering pegs. And because of the Castering nose wheel, the nose wheel turned toward the wing and relieved all of that force pulling the right riser up, the one that was lifting me to roll me over, and ended in a fairly successful landing. Although here, Mike and I are discussing the fact that he thought I was going to roll over. Yeah, I thought I was going to too. That's why I bailed off the steering. The winds are strong out of this way. Well, I mean, for this thing. So anyways, that's the end of the story. Hope you're doing well. Fly safe.